It was with great pleasure that I'm standing here today to introduce our guest speaker, B Yehoshua, known to Bully as to all his friends, to our 40th anniversary event. Bully was born to a fifth-generation family in Jerusalem and grew up there. He served in the IDF and after that went on to study literature and philosophy at the Hebrew University. From 1963 to 1967, Bully lived and taught in Paris and served as the General Secretary of the World Union of Jewish Students, which is where we met. From the end of his service in the IDF, he began to publish fiction, and he very soon became a prominent figure in the new wave generation of Israeli writers. He has written 11 novels, 3 books of short stories, 4 plays, and 4 collections of essays. He has had many awards and was shortlisted for the Man Booker International Prize. He has also received many honorary doctorates from here and abroad, and I'm not listing them all because there are too many. This afternoon, however, Bully is not talking about his books, but rather a topic that is close to his heart, Jewish, Zionist, Israeli, with a question mark. I'm looking at Bully's CV. I found this quote, which really spoke to me, and I'm just going to read it out. Diaspora Jews changed their nationalities like jackets. Once they were Polish and Russian, now they are British and American. One day they could choose to be Chinese or Singaporean. For me, Avraham Yehoshua, there is no alternative. I cannot keep my identity outside Israel. Being Israeli is my skin, not my jacket. I thought that is so beautifully put. So with no further ado, I invite B Yehoshua to come and take the podium.
Okay. The podium is too high, but generally I am inviting podium that will hide my belly, but it is a little bit too high. Anyhow, what I'm going to do this afternoon is a very simple thing. I want to do definitions. When I say definition, I mean definition as are defined in the dictionary. Meaning, as I define, for example, a chair, I have to include in definition all the chairs that had been in history and all the chairs that will be in the satellite in the future. Meaning that the definition has to stick to the quality, to the main quality of a chair in order to difference between a sofa or an armchair, or things like that, in order to be exact. And what I try to challenge you is by trying to do the definition of 3 terms that are used every day by us in many, many places: Jew, Zionist, and Israeli. I'm not defining Judaism. I'm not defining Zionism. I'm not defining Israelism, but I define the term Jew, Zionist, and Israeli as we are using it all the time. And I have to say to you that I have done it many, many times with different audiences. And I have to confess to you that people are amazed when I try to do the definition, and perhaps because we don't have here time for discussion, I always say, challenge me and prove me that my definitions are not correct. So the question, who is a Jew? Who is a Jew? People are still discussing the question, who is a Jew? It is amazing. For a people of 3,000 years, still he is debating upon the problem who is a Jew and who is not a Jew. 3 times the definition of Jew has been changed in the law of return of Israel. In the law of return, meaning in the last, let's say, 71 years, but it was changed in the, let's say, in the first 20 years, the term, who is a Jew? People are asking us, what is happening to you? You didn't have enough time to define who is a Jew. You are a people of 3,000 years. How it is possible that still now you are debating the question, who is a Jew? But it is not because we don't have other problems to debate, that we are still debating on the problem, who is a Jew. It is because there is a problem in the definition itself. There is a problem in the definition. And the problem was becoming very serious after the establishment of Israel. Because before, let's say if you have been in the 30s in a voyage in Argentina, and you are entering an hotel in Argentina, and the owner of the hotel says, I'm Jewish. You ask him how you are Jewish, he said, my father, my grandfather, whatever he say. They say to you, okay, be Jewish, why not? Give us just a reduction in the price of the hotel, if you are Jewish. But it doesn't bother you. You don't have any commitment. Why not? He will not be Jewish. He defined himself Jewish. He will be Jewish. But when the state of Israel was created, Jewish was the meaning of Jewish, meaning that you get citizenship immediately, without questioning you more and more. You are becoming citizen of Israel, according to the law of return. So the question, who is a Jew, becoming a serious and practical question, and you have to do the definition. So, what is the definition of Jewish? We don't know when the halachic definition was founded, but more or less people are thinking about 300 years BC, before Christ. More or less in the Second Temple, the definition, the first definition of the halakha, or the basic definition of halakha, was started. And the definition was very simple. A Jew is a child of a Jewish mother. Now, who is the Jewish mother? Why she is Jewish? Because she was born to a Jewish mother. Why the grandmother is Jewish? Because she was born to a Jewish mother. This is the definition. This is the definition till now of the halakha. A Jew is a child of a Jewish mother. And why she is Jewish? Because she was born to a Jewish mother. What is amazing in this definition is its emptiness. It's totally empty. Meaning, a Jew doesn't have to speak Hebrew to be Jewish. He doesn't have to live in Eretz Israel to be Jewish. He doesn't have to be in a Jewish community to be Jewish. And he doesn't have to believe in God in order to be Jewish. The halakha definition doesn't put anything of religious in the definition. So it is a mistake, a logical mistake, to say Christian, Muslim, and Jewish. This is a mistake, a logical mistake. You have to say Christian, Muslim, and believer Jews. But you can say British, French, Jewish. This is correct. This is a correct logical sentence. Meaning that when you see the halachic definition, you are amazed to find that the halachic definition is without any religious component. No religious component at all. When 99% of the Jews were religious. Till the 19th century or till the 18th century, 90% or 99% of the Jews were religious. And still, it was so easy to say a Jew is a person who believes in God or believes in Torah Moshe. But no, Jew is a child of a Jewish mother. But the Jewish mother is not important. This is the amazing thing. You can be born to a Jewish mother then go to a church and you convert yourself and you are not anymore Jewish. Don't do mistake. Don't do mistake. Don't think you have a Jewish mother, but when you convert yourself, you are not anymore Jewish. And hundreds of thousands of Jews has done it through history. We have been in the end of the Second Temple between 2 and 3, even more millions of people in the ancient world, which when I speak about the ancient world, I speak about the Roman ancient world, not about Asia. And the population was 70 millions, and we have been 2.5 million, it was, or 3 millions. And we reached the beginning of the 18th century, we have been only 1 million. 1 million in the beginning of the 18th century. Meaning a lot of Jews during the 1800 years had disappeared totally and were lost totally by conversion. So when you convert yourself, even your Jewish mother does not give you your Jewishness. And if you have not been born to a Jewish mother, you can become a Jew by going and do conversion. So it is, the Jewish mother is not even important to the definition. So what is the definition? The definition is very anarchistic and very problematic, very problematic. And these problems in the definition of a Jew will remain forever, in my opinion. And it will be always a ground to debates about what is a Jewish. Because the definition who is a Jew is a person who declares himself a Jew or identifies himself as Jewish. What kind of definition it can be? Imagine that people will say, I am American, so he will be American. I am British, he will be British. No, but this is definition. And if you think this is a definition of a poet, of a writer, I will tell you that in the law of return of Israel, that was founded in the end of 48 or 49, when Israel was founded, the definition of a Jew in the law of return, when hundreds, even millions of Jews were coming to Israel, in the first years of the state, definition was a Jew is according to his declaration, and he doesn't have another religion. This was the definition in the law. Then there was the problem of Beni Shalit and things like that in 58, and this was changed about the question of a Jewish mother. And then there was the question of a Jewish father, and the Russian Jews, when they came, immediately they have to speak about also the problem of a Jewish grandfather and things like that. And still the real definition is a Jew is a person who identifies as a Jew or declares himself as a Jew. This is a problem. And this will remain problem, in my opinion. I remember very well when in 58, when there was the case of Beni Shalit, and Ben Gurion was sending questions to 60 or 70 sages of Israel, from all layers of the society, from all groups in Israel and outside Israel, religious and non-religious and things like that, and asked them what is the definition of a Jew. And so they gave him many answers, and the definition of Shai Agnon, the famous writer, was very smart. He said, Mr. Prime Minister, take your hands from this question. You will never get a clear answer. This is the problem. And I have to say to you that if you want to understand the sources of anti-Semitism, it's because the non-Jews that doesn't know who is a Jew, because the Jews themselves do not know, they can project on the Jews their demons, their desire, their viciousness, whatever they can project on the Jew. Because the non-Jew asks himself, what is the relation between Trotsky, Rothschild, and the rabbi of Lubavitch? What is the relation between them? All are Jews, but what are the relationship between them? And so they can create a kind of a mystery about the protocol of the sages of Zion and things like that. There are no connection between Trotsky, Rothschild, and Rabbi Milubavitch. They cannot speak to each other. And if Trotsky would come with the Red Revolution to France, he will kill Rothschild without any hesitation. But still, all are Jews. What is in common between them? It is problematic, and it will remain problematic. Now the question is, who is Zionist? Zionist, contrary to the question of Jew, is very simple and very clear. And what we have done in this term, we have done a mess by our own hands, right and left, religious and seculars, have done mess of this simple definition of who is a Zionist. And the fact that Zionism is now in the center of the attack of Israel. In the campuses in America or in Britain, etc., they will speak about de-Zionization of Israel. And the Arabs speak not about Israeli, but about the Zionist soldier. This is what the Hamas are speaking, or the Hezbollah, and the others. And Zionism is becoming an attack, a weapon in the debate between right and left. When right say to the left, you are anti-Zionist, and the left say to the right, you are contaminating Zionism. Everything is becoming a weapon in the battle between all ideas and parties in Israel. And what we have to do is to do reduction in the use of Zionism. We have many debates between us, but we don't have to stack all the time the question of Zionism. Zionism is very simple, and we have to do the definition and get rid of using all the time the word Zionism. This is my recommendation. So what is Zionism? First of all, it was started, you cannot speak about Zionism before 1882 or 86. You know that in 1882, the word anti-Semitism was coined by William Mayer in Vienna. So it is something that was related, the word anti-Semitism, speaking about the hatred of Jews, was related to the development or the creation of Zionism. Who was Zionist? In the beginning, it is a person who wanted to create a state in Eretz Israel. The main word in the definition is state, not to come to Israel. My great-grandfathers were coming from Saloniki in 1860, and they were not Zionists. They came here not to establish a state. They came here to be in the Eretz Israel, like the great-grandfathers of Rubi Rivlin, and the people from Batei Ungarin, for example. The most extreme religious people came here on the 18th century, on the 17th century. But they did not come to be Zionist. The key word in the word is someone who wanted to establish a state in Israel, in Eretz Israel. What kind of a state? Everyone has its own dream. Zionism is not ideology. This sentence you have to remain and to keep in your mind. Zionism is a platform of different and contradictory ideologies. From the left, from the far left to the far right. You can be a fascist Zionist, you can be a socialist Zionist, you can be a religious Zionist, whatever. There are debates about ideology and about the problem as there are everywhere. if there will be, the territories are not making Israel more Zionist or less Zionist. When we pulled out from Gaza, we did not become less Zionist. When we put settlement in Gaza, we did not become more Zionist. The question of religion, the question of all the main questions that we are debating have nothing to do with Zionism. Zionism also only the question of creating a state. The majority of the Jewish people was against Zionism. This we have to bear in mind, because this was the great failure of the Jewish people. If there was a general election in the Jewish world in the beginning of the 20th century, the Zionists will get about 8% or 10% of the vote, no more. The huge masses of the religious people were against Zionism. The Bundists, the socialist Jews in East Europe, were against Zionism. The Reform movement was against Zionism. The assimilating Jews were against Zionism. The success of Zionism was only by the fact that the Zionists did not ask permission from the Jewish people to come here. If they would ask permission, they will not get it. And the Jews did not come. And this was our great failure, the problem, the great failure of the Holocaust. Because after Balfour Declaration, there was a possibility of the Jews to come here. All the numbers of the Jews in the 19th centuries when my great-grandparents were coming were 10,000, 15,000 Jews were living here. While in Afghanistan there were 40,000. In Yemen there were 80,000. In Syria there were 40,000 or even more. And in Poland already million. Here Jews did not come. They were going around Eretz Israel. With all the prayers, with all the things, Jews did not approach Eretz Israel. It was abandoned. And after the Balfour Declaration, there was here 50,000 Jews. And Balfour Declaration was giving to the Jews the possibility to come here. And the Jews were in great immigration from east to west. Millions of Jews moved from east to west, West Europe and then America. And if there was here 5% of the Jewish people coming here before the Second World War, we could create a state before the Holocaust. If there was a state before the Holocaust, already in the 30s, we could save about 1 or 2 million. So imagine yourself what will be Israel today with 2 million more on the 30s that would, afterwards with all the generations that would come with them. The failure is the deep failure of the Jewish people. This is a deep failure. This is a defect in the DNA of the Jewish people. Not Zionism is to be furtive for not coming here. Weizmann was saying, where is the Jewish people? They didn't come. They did not come, and they are not coming here, and they are coming only because anti-Semitism. They don't love Eretz Israel. On the contrary, they hate. They try to find all the time a distance between Israel and themselves. And this is our great failure. Because in 5 years, never a people was destroyed like we had been destroyed. In 5 years, not for territory, not for religion, not for ideology, not for economical, practical matters, nothing for this. We had been killed like microbes. The most disgusting and the most humiliating thing. And we are not regarding the Holocaust as a failure. We speak about anti-Semitism, but we have to do a kind of a self-examination how we reach such a position when all the warning was, when Jabotinsky was saying, if you will not destroy the Holocaust, the exile will destroy you. And this is what happened. Now, what is the definition of a Zionist after the creation of the state? The definition is very simple. A Zionist who is a person who confirms the principle that the state of Israel does not belong only to its citizens. First of all, it belongs to its citizens, whatever are holding Israeli identity card, but also to the Jewish people, and this means the law of return. Approving the law of return, this means Zionism. And those Israelis who don't prove the law of return, they can be very patriotic and very good Israelis in all sense, but they don't agree to the law of return, like there are Arabs and Druze who are serving in the army and all that, they are against the law of return. But today's Zionism, this is the only meaning. If you are a pilot in the Air Force, or you are just someone who is selling cigarettes in the road, you are the same Zionist. He's not more Zionist than you. There are other words to use, like patriot, like pioneer. There are other words to give merit to these people who are doing more for the state than others, or for the society. As I said, recommend to reduce the using of Zionism, to reduce it. Now, the question is, the question of who is an Israeli. In every definition, who is an Israeli, who is British, who is French, who is Norwegian, who is Italian, etc., there are two meanings: citizenship and identity. They are not the same. There are in Israel many people who have other passports, but still they don't have the identity of the countries in which they hold their passport. My nephew was born in America and immediately got an American passport. It doesn't mean that he's American. He doesn't want to be American. He doesn't identify himself as American. So we have to do a distinction, a clear distinction between what we call citizenship and identity. Citizenship, there are 8.5 million Israelis who are holding Israeli identity card, among them Jews, Arab, Druze, etc. This is identity card, this is citizenship. But when we speak about identity, we speak about the Israeli is the total Jew. He is taking the emptiness in the definition of Jewishness and make it totally by sitting in an environment that everything is Jewish, meaning Israelis. Israeli is the name, the original name of these people. If Moses, David, Isaiah, Jeremiah, others will enter here and you will ask them who you are, identify yourself, they will say we are Israelis or the children of Israel. You will ask them, are you Jewish? Moses will say, I don't understand what it is Jewish. What means Jewish? From Yehudi, from the tribe of Yehuda. I'm not from Yehuda, I'm from Levi. The question is, they will not define themselves as Jews. If you will go to the Israeli encyclopedia that was written by religious people, you will come to the word Jew, they will say to you, go and see Israel. The original name is Israel. The name of the country is Eretz Israel. The name of the state is Israel. So the question is Israel. And the Jew is upgrading himself totally by coming from his Jewishness to Israel. And Israel is the name. What was happening lastly, and by this government terribly, is to put a defect on the word Israeli. To say you are not even Jewish, or you are forgotten to be Jewish. How is it possible? You can imagine someone in Britain say to the British who doesn't know Shakespeare at all, let's say. He doesn't heard about Shakespeare. There will be someone who say to him, you are not British enough. I can swear you that the pilots of the Air Force that fought for England, for the Battle of England in the Second World War, when Churchill was saying we owe so much, so many to so few, some of them did not know the names of the plays of Shakespeare. They knew better the players of the Manchester United or whatever. So what? They were not British? You can examine. The question is that when we are Israeli, you are committed to other Israelis. You have responsibility to other Israelis. In the diaspora, the Jew is free from the other Jew. The Jew cannot touch him. The Jew cannot impose nothing upon him. He's committed to America, England, whatever country he's living. But he's free from the Jew. But we here, we are paying taxes to the Jews. We are going to the wars by the Jews. We are going to prison by the Jews. And all the Jewish values are defined according to what we are doing. We are not in the book. We are in reality. In the angle in which a soldier is holding his rifle against a Palestinian demonstration, a Jewish value is judged. The Jewish value is judged according to what is happening in the prisons, what is happening in every place. Like the British values are decided and judged by what the British are doing, wrong or not wrong, like this or like that. I am responsible to the children of Baruch Goldstein who had done this terrible massacre in the Me'arat HaMachpelah. I'm responsible to them. Because we are in a state in which all are responsible to each other in all means, when we like it or we didn't like it. So Israeli is, and in this sense, the Arabs minority, who are Palestinian Israelis, meaning their identity is Palestinian and their citizenship is Israeli, are participating in our life as minority in the identity of all of us. I'm always proud by the fact that the President of Israel was judged to 7 years of prison by an Arab, Christian Arab Israeli. George Kara had sent him, and nobody was saying it is impossible. Like you can be a Jewish prime minister in Britain, you can be a foreign minister in Britain where you are Jewish, but you are totally in the British framework. So, to sum up, when we speak about a Jew, we have to face the fact that a Jew is according to his declaration. This is problematic by itself, and we will not be able to change it, because this is the essence of the definition. And when people try to put content on it, they cannot do it. Believe me, at least 500,000 Jews that were killed in the Holocaust were Jews only because their fathers were Jewish or their grandfather was Jewish. And if they would come here, perhaps they will be stopped by the law of return, say you are not Jewish enough. But it is, of course, nonsense. If they identify themselves as Jews, they are Jews. Zionists, we have to stick to the minimum question of approving the law of return. And the law of return, I have to say to you, because Arabs are saying this is a law that do harm to us. It is unjust law. When the UN had decided in 47 to create two states, Palestinian state and Israeli state, they have said the Israeli state is not for the 600,000 Jews that were living there, but this state will have to absorb and to receive all the Jews that were coming after the Holocaust and whatever. When Jew is persecuted, this state will have to give him home. So this was a moral demand from the United Nations to the Israeli to have a law of return. So it is not an unjust law as some of us in the left or in the Arabs community are saying. So this is Zionism, proving that the state of Israel is not only the state of its citizens but also of the Jewish people, and Israelis doing the clear definition between identity and citizenship. And as citizenship, we know those people who have identity card, and identity meaning the full Jewishness, whatever it is, coming to a full reality. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.